When a sliver of cold moonlight in the deep Egyptian night, millennia before the Common Era, slanted across the last marble portico leading to the great western desert, the air was steeped in the faint scent of dried grass and the residual warmth of rocks scorched by the solar fire. Within a stone chamber shrouded by heavy linen curtains, where the receding tide of the distant Nile could be heard, a man draped in a linen robe, his eyes reflecting a profound sense of universal desolation, sat in absolute stillness, opening his empty hands. He was not plotting to summon gales that would blot out the sun. Instead, within the sanctuary of his mind, sharpened by eons of guarding the frontiers, he chewed over the philosophical metaphors of dust found in the ancient solar litanies. He was Ash, the lord of the Libyan desert, an intellectual watcher who chose solitude at the pinnacle of power, exiling himself to the labyrinth for thousands of years. This is a chronicle of how restraint erupts into power, and how desolation is transmutated into nobility. The genesis of Ash's life was imbued with a primal simplicity characteristic of the pre-dynastic era, much like the etchings on ancient pottery, a dark golden foundation woven from the most primitive laws of survival and celestial observations upon the red earth washed by floods. As a deity naturally endowed with the duty of defining boundaries, he inherited a microcosm that was ruthlessly cold, governed by the strictness of territorial division and the complex gambits of divine functions. Amidst rock walls crimsoned by the glow of campfires, he learned to use his gaze to perceive the spatio-temporal structures lurking behind every vanishing point. He rejected the pursuit of favor within the pharaoh's gilded banquet halls, turning instead to the embrace of the parched wilderness, realms where wind and sand ground down the ego, yet provided a scale to measure the true breadth of civilization. This near-pathological pursuit of existential truth became the first incurable fold in his psyche, and the only armor that would guard his reality in a world of chaos. If his early vigils were the tempering of his will, then the phase in which he first carved the divine boundary stone along the Libyan frontier was the practical crucible that pushed Ash's aesthetics of restraint to its absolute zenith. He overthrew the prevailing divine fashions of blind conquest, resolutely designing the labyrinth as a sanctuary for the afflicted. He sought to replace endless violent conflict with prolonged geometric algorithms. In those quiet nights, where only the trickle of sifting sand could be heard, he issued silent commands that stabilized the order of the frontiers through ruthlessly precise calculations of the Earth's magnetic field and stellar positions. In those moments, Ash was the most sober and solitary artisan of the entire Sahara, accepting every mockery from Seth or Horus with silence. His radical focus rendered him like a marble bell tower, solitary and soaring, yet indestructible. The summit of power in the eyes of the wise is often manifested as the penetration of truth. Ash gradually realized that when he finally earned the title Mirror of Universal Order upon the altars of the 18th dynasty, he had obtained not just stability, but a nihilistic clarity that saw through the rise and fall of all things. He discovered that grand imperial ideals, once thought invincible, turned into a fragility more powerful than any curse when faced with the fleeting illusions of a mirage. This transition, returning from creator to watcher, was fraught with intellectual struggle. He wrote in his final journal, "I once believed I was building the future. Now I find I am merely searching for a point of convergence within the scarred fissures of memory, where the soul no longer falls." This expansive clarity, born of witnessing the ebb and flow of empires, became his hardest armor in his later years. The final mythic season of Ash was spent in a state of profound solemnity and a silence illuminated by the radiance of a sage. By then, Ash's body had become remarkably weightless from eons of vigil. His once heavy linen robe now hung loosely upon his slender frame. He understood that the golden era belonging to ancient Egypt was drawing to its close with every fading breath, and that he, the last guardian of order, would soon be buried in the dust of history. In his final conscious moments, he requested his servants to lead him to the window, to look one last time at the grey mist drifting across the Libyan horizon, a mist that looked so much like the base layer of a painting. He closed his eyes, tracing a final arc of completion across his chest with hands that had held 10,000 scepters and turned 10,000 scrolls. The evening breeze carried away the final sigh of this great hermit, marking the official end of the era known as the Dawn of Order. Even today, 2 millennia after his departure, the name Ash remains the sole sanctuary for many insomniac seekers in the deep of night. What he left behind was not a towering monument of triumph, but a spiritual template of self-restraint and noble departure. He teaches us that even if the entire world besieges you with turmoil, the order of your inner self remains governed by your perception of truth. In absolute shadow, he maintained absolute sobriety. Amidst absolute temptation, he held onto absolute logic. Beneath the border ruins worn smooth by history, he maintains that posture of leaning his head to listen, as if still soothing this increasingly restless and anxious world. His life was an intellectual long march seeking sacred rhythms amidst the chaotic dust of the world. Ash's story thus draws to a slow close amidst the fading whispers of the desert wind. He was never a political opportunist seeking fame. He was merely a weary soul who steadfastly refused to compromise with mediocrity. Inner tranquility is your only true and eternal refuge. Just as he did during the coldest winter nights of ancient Egypt, guarding a flickering candle and searching for a fulcrum of existence through the tip of his quill. Please believe that in every person's life, there is a labyrinth of their own, a private space for dialogue with the self that requires no outward explanation. It resides not in trophies nor in fame, but in every steady breath you take and in your gentle gaze upon the world. May Ash's serenity and vastness become the softest feather in your dreams, carrying you to the farthest, most tranquil shore of the soul. Good night, and may sweet dreams be with you.